everybody, it is Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember that you guys should become patrons over on Patreon if you guys want to support the channel. Yeah. So today we're talking about a concept that I had in a My Hero Academia video that we did a while ago, I guess. So we're going to talk about the idea that Quirks only appeared 100 years ago. I'm here to tell you that they didn't.
Okay.
And here's why, okay? We have a bunch of myths and legends in our world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and like the Greek gods and all of that nonsense. So I am here to tell you that Quirks
female orgasm
did not Quirks did not appear 100 years ago. I think that even though it was rare, Quirks only appeared 100 years ago for everybody, but I think that something interesting that they could do in My Hero Academia is kind of cover the fact that since My Hero Academia seems to be basically placed in our world, but basically. Now they have Quirks, right? And so if we're judging off of that, our world has a lot of myths and legends, like, you know, we mentioned. So my idea basically is that all of those legends that were sort of in myth were actually people that had Quirks, but Quirks weren't a thing yet, and people just sort of saw them and was like, that's a god, or, you know, whatever happens, right?
So Zeus just has a lightning quirk,
exactly.
Basically?
Yeah.
What did Jesus have?
I don't know. We don't
quite
need to talk
a few
about
quirks? Is that like they celebrate Christmas at Hogwarts, so was Jesus a wizard conversation that inevitably happens?
I feel like for this, though, it's more like, I don't know how to explain this, but I think that it's like, so, if you guys don't know, there's ancient alien theory, and that's basically that aliens came down to Earth, and that the Greek gods were aliens, and, like, other gods in other religions, and that they were basically just space aliens with tech, and then humans saw them and was like, that's a god, right? So this is kind of the same thing. People with Quirks, though, no aliens here. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, I guess the best example I can think of is, like, Tokiyami has the bird head, right?
Yes.
And in a lot of indigenous culture, right, there is the idea of the raven being sort of a trickster god and sort of all that stuff. So obviously somebody with Tokiyami's sort of quirk could have existed back then, and not necessarily tricked people on purpose, but people just saw him and then assumed something, right? Because obviously Tokiyami has a very interesting power, right? And so with that power comes godliness, right? You know what I mean?
Or like the Minotaur, that could be. Like
I was just gonna mention that because
like
that could
the Egyptian god with like the dog head.
Yes, that was what I was thinking of too. Tokiyami, obviously, and some of the other characters have heads that are from different animals, and that is something that happens with the Egyptian gods. They have heads of certain things. So yeah.
And there's also like, because the principle is a rare example of an animal that has had a quirk. Mm-hmm. So a lot more of like the more beastly creatures of the history, those could also have been.
Well, Bigfoot is what I was thinking of.
So Bigfoot could have been like a bear that got a human quirk.
No.
Well, because that's what the principal has. The principal is a bear dog.
No, he's a mouse.
Yeah. Well,
but
he never actually says what
he's a human, I guess, that turns.
No, he's an animal that has a quirk. In the manga, they say that. Okay. He's one of the rare examples of an animal that has.
Oh, I see what you're talking about now. Yeah. Okay. You confused me, because I was like, what the fuck is Hunter going on? Like, the teacher's not a bear, he's a... Now I understand, so, yeah. I would say, in that regard, it's more, like, I guess the idea of talking animals has always been a thing. So, Little Red Riding Hood's a fairy tale. It's a folklore that falls under the category of fairy tales. So, obviously in Little Red Riding Hood, there's a talking wolf, and no one knows why. It just happens. In other versions of the story, it's a werewolf man, but maybe, Hunter, you're onto something where there's a wolf that has the quirk that sort of is like the mouse, like the intelligence. Because, you know, the wolf in the story, and fairy tales are different than myths, right? They're in sort of two different categorizations, right? But the thing is that what if the wolf had an intelligence quirk, and that's how we knew, like, to beat Little Red Riding Hood to the house and to, like, eat Grandma? And, like, in one version of the story, he puts her blood and her meat in, like, a cellar and makes Little Red Riding Hood eat it or something, and then, like, gets her to come into bed with him or something, and there's, like, some sexual undertones.
What kind of cannibalistic, pedophilic version of the Red Riding Hood fairy tale
It was in class.
have you... What the fuck are they...
I'm taking a fairy tales class, if anybody
Also, what the
anyone
fuck
was
kind
wondering.
of practical use... Listen, I understand. I'm a communications major. I know a lot
It's
of
an
the stuff I
elective!
do.
It's supposed to be fun!
Alright.
Anyway, so yeah, so obviously fairy tales are different than myths, but that's an example, right? Fairy tales had to come from somewhere. It was either someone's imagination or it was something that actually happened, right? Like, those are the only two options when you think about it, really.
Tales that we tell kids
Probably,
to
but I'm saying
tell
that
them life lessons.
the idea is that in the My Hero Academia universe, this would have been a real thing that possibly happened and that people turned into a fairy tale because it's just so nonsensical because people didn't have powers back then. Now it's like, oh, well, everybody kind of has Quirks now, so it's not, you know what, you understand what I'm trying to say? Is that back then that would have been extra weird because obviously these are, I don't want to say primitive humans, like they were pretty fucking smart. You know, like the Greeks and the Romans and whatever the fuck, right? But they weren't exactly to our level, whereas, like, if we saw something, we would go down the science route first. They went down the god route, maybe, right? So, for My Hero Academia, I think that, like you said, Hunter, like, the Egyptian gods and, like, the Greek gods, like, Zeus could have had a lightning quirk, you know what I mean? And I can't think of any other Greek gods right now. Persephone, what does she do? She's something with nature or something. You know how one of the characters, he's able to get animals to do whatever he wants for him, right? Like, these are all sort of godly powers that have been turned into superhero
I feel like
things.
Hermes could have had, like, Ida's quirk, but instead of an engine, just wings.
Wings on his feet? Exactly, and so that's what I'm talking about, and I think that would be a super interesting concept to introduce in the manga, and this is more of an idea brainstorm. I'm not saying that this is canon or anything, but if they're already in our world anyway, like, this is a very interesting idea that they could incorporate into the lore of the world. That, yes, Quirks started appearing, like, 100 years ago or whatever to the general public, but like all mutations, right, it started somewhere. You know what I mean? And maybe it didn't start 100 years ago. Like, there's lots of mutations we have now that probably only a couple humans had all the way back then. So, I don't take any science classes. I'm not a science major, but, like, that's my...
I don't know how evolution happens.
I don't know how evolution
I don't know what
works.
I'm talking about.
You understand what I'm
and yet,
saying?
for some reason, I'm still making a video.
But you understand what I'm saying, Hunter? Like, lactose intolerance, for example, is something that every human had at the beginning.
What is your quirk? Lactose intolerant.
I'm saying as a mutation.
That better be lactate in my coffee, or I will be shitting myself come noon.
Like, lactose intolerance was something that everyone had, and eventually people mutated out of because they needed to drink milk.
I thought, okay. Oh, I thought it was more of an introduction to lactate. I don't know.
It was like, I don't know, people started drinking milk, and the people that drunk milk survived because they could drink it, and the people that couldn't just died, apparently. Okay. I don't know, something like that. So I'm saying that, you know, all of mutations had to start somewhere, and so I'm saying that in terms of My Hero Academia, there are some very interesting myths and legends in the world that could have been justified as, oh, that person had a quirk, right? Especially, like, when I was making this video, I was thinking about the Egyptian gods, I was thinking of Bigfoot, and I was thinking of the Loch Ness Monster, if I'm honest. Like, that's where sort of my mind had drifted off to. But how cool would that be, Hunter? Like, how cool would that be if Bigfoot was, like, real? They were just a person that was super hairy and got, like, exiled from society. Like,
that would be sad. I'm just like, you're probably a cool dude. Just, you know.
Well, you know what? They get to stay there now because
I feel
everyone
bad
has
for
quirks.
the Bigfoot.
For the Bigfoot person. So, Hunter, I've talked a lot, but what do you think?
I don't know. Could Bigfoot, like, beat it off? Could he, like, get laser hair removal surgery? Anyways.
But what do you think about sort of what we've discussed? Because this was my theory, so I want to hear your thoughts, I guess.
It's a very interesting world. It's the world of My Hero Academia is fun, and I think you're not supposed to think much about it.
No, but this is a fun thing that they can add.
About it, the more it's the more you're like, when did So,
I think this makes it fun though, because then you have like people that would be considered magical creatures and myths and stuff existing.
Well, that's all good fun,
and I think that's good fun. I think that's fine.
Yeah, but I feel like with My Hero Academia, especially in the manga, they try to put like a hard separation between, well, because in the story it's the world existed how it was now, Quirks happened,
Yeah.
the world fell into chaos, and then the age of the hero happened,
Yeah.
and then it got better.
And so what
there's
I'm
this
saying
whole
is
period
that
separates ourselves from the past time to the present time.
Mhm.
So I feel like My Hero Academia does a good job of being like, don't give a shit about anything that happens after this point. Deal with this whole new world.
I guess
Which
so.
maybe could be a mistake because you get interesting stuff like that. However, I don't know if there's a lot more to the idea of Zeus having a quirk than other just being like a joke in the background or something.
I don't know. I think that it would be cool in terms of Deku, because Deku seems to be very interested in stuff like that. Like, Deku seems like a character that would definitely know about the history of myths and stuff in relation to Quirks. And again, if it was supposed to be basically how our world was now, this is something that's a part of our world. Myths, legends, fairy tales, and folklore is very important
Well, because it would also be
to society and culture, so, you know.
They could maybe do something where it's like, because they mentioned how if you don't have this, like, certain ligament or whatever in your toe, that means you don't have a quirk. So then maybe you could find, like, old, ancient, mummified bones without that ligament. So
Or
it's like,
with it,
with the ligament or
whatever.
whatever, that, like, oh, these people may have had quirks back then. That would be interesting.
That would be cool. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Obviously, this is an idea brainstorm video, if I must reiterate again. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you later. Bye. Thank you guys for watching, and if you guys want to support the channel, you guys should become patrons over on Patreon. $10 patrons get video tickets, and these video tickets are used to request things like shipping videos, theory videos, or sometimes entire episodes of anime. You guys will see that some of our videos have paid Patreon request or paid Patreon video. Those are these guys who are asking us to do that for them. Our $5 patrons, of course, get early access to everything that we put onto the channel, and our $1 patrons, they are able to join our Discord server just like all of the other tiers on this list, obviously. So if that interests you, then you guys should check it out. A link is in the description down below, and I'm hoping to see you guys again in our Discord server. Bye, guys.